So tonight we're going to paint this guy. We're going to attempt it. I got a few tricks up my sleeve, and I told you guys to try and grab a couple of these if you can, or if you have these, that's awesome too. But don't worry if you don't. You don't have to have them, but I like to try new tools when I paint, and I'm working on the blending because canvas is new to me, and my blending still kind of sucks. So I'm trying new techniques to make it easier. And I'm all for that. So tonight we're going to try a little blending with the sponges if you have them. If you don't, you can use the paintbrushes, okay? But if you do have them, we're going to try the sponges, and I'll show you why. I did this one as a test, and I did that with nothing but one of the sponges, okay? 70s in Kentucky, nice. Yeah, so it's beautiful weather today. Like, I can't complain, right? So I did this one just as a little tester with just sponges. A paintbrush did not touch this. Rain is coming. Yes, it is. And in Mississippi. Okay. So y'all looking forward to painting tonight? You got your paintbrushes, your beverages, your appetizers, your music's playing in the back, and we are going to have some fun. That's all we're here to do tonight. So guys, it's all about fun. It's not about being perfect. Remember, you can always paint over it if you really, really hate it, but we're going to ask you to leave it for a day or two and then come back and look at it, because lots of times it's all about perspective, and we get kind of stuck in the details and in the weeds and the little things. And I did put a video up on my page that shows how to paint over these things. So I painted over one of the signs that I've done so that you can see it's easy enough to do, and you can reuse your canvas. So you never lose, okay? And you always learn. So that's perfect, right? If it's not exactly what you want, leave it for a couple of days. If you still hate it, paint over it, save the canvas, go again, try again. Last week, Teresa, she's not on yet, but I imagine she'll be here. Last week, Teresa wasn't crazy about her trees, and she felt that they were not quite what she wanted. She wanted them to look more like what I had done, and they had come out a little thicker. So she's in my membership group. So we chatted in the membership group, and I talked to her about it. And I mean, they looked beautiful. I loved them. They looked like snow-covered trees. But she wanted to work on the technique and get them more like sparse, like we had them last week. So like these guys here. Remember these last week? Okay, she wanted them a little more sparse like that, and her hadn't come out like that. So we talked about it, and then she painted over and tried again. And there she is. Teresa, I was just talking about you. She painted over it, tried again. Or I don't know if she painted over, but she painted again. She did it again. Like, remember last week we talked about every painting's an experiment right now. And the first one is really just experimental. You're going to try some things. Some things are going to work, some won't. But if you really love it, you're going to paint it again, right? On a different canvas with all that information that you now have to make it easier and make it better and fix the things you're not crazy about. And you'll be much happier with the second painting, I promise, okay? But the first one is just experimental. Even with this one, I'm not completely happy with a lot of the things on it, but I learned a lot. And tonight I'm going to change a few things, and it'll look similar. Sisters, not twins, right? It'll look similar. So I asked you to have these if you can, but if you don't, you're just going to use brushes, okay? So I have a blue paint, a yellow paint, and an orange paint. And you can see there's blue up here, orange here, and yellow there. Hello, Tracy from Barrhaven. Tracy's not far from me. Tracy's just on the other side of the city. And we have some tape. Now, again, this is something you can do. I have a little bit of tape. And see this little sun here? I'm just going to cut out a circle and stick it on there and paint right over it with the yellow. So that'll be my sun. I'll put it up later on. I can paint a circle, guys. But hang on here. Not everybody can, and it's not the easiest thing in the world, believe it or not, unless you got one of those little spouncer thingies. So I'm just going to, it's not perfectly circular sun, but I'm just going to cut a circle, and this is going to be my sun. So just trim it up. Remember I said keep tape in your painting kit, and I'm going to put that like right about there. So about, yeah, I'd say it about in the middle. Looks to be about in the middle of the board. Okay, and a couple inches over, like 3 fingers over or more. This one's, yeah, it looks like 3 fingers. That's how I measure, guys, 3 fingers. Yeah, so you know what? I'm a painter I'm not afraid to try and use different things on my paint. I don't think you just have to use paintbrushes, right? I think everything is up for grabs. So I am all about that, okay? So I'm going to what we're going to do, I think, is we're going to paint the blue in and the orange, and then we're going to try and blend in the yellow. That's the plan. But I want to show you that I want to do it with a sponge, okay? I'm going to do it with the sponge. If this is not for you, if you don't have a sponge, just use your paintbrushes. Paint in the blue. It looks to be about 1/3 of the blue, okay? And then 2/3, about 2/3 up is like 1/3 will be the yellow, and the orange actually comes up more than 1/3, 1/3 plus half, okay? So we're going to do the blue and the orange first, and then we're going to use the yellow to blend. And we're going to see how that works, okay? Because I don't know for sure. But I am going to take it damp. I have water here, okay? I'm going to take a damp sponge. And this is my favorite way to paint on wood, okay? And I'm going to use it, see that, to do a quick, I'm going to move that out of the way, background. And I only want that about that far, okay? And I don't want to go any further than that. And then I'm going to take the yellow. I'm going to try with the yellow. Okay, guys, I'm just winging it here. I'm not much further ahead than you guys are in painting. So I want the yellow to blend right there. And I'm going to go right over that sun that I had there, okay? But see, now I've got blue on there, so I have to be careful. I want to keep that blue up in the same spot and maybe work up a little bit. Okay, see that? So I've got some blending going on, and see, it kind of mixed on the sponge. You see that? Now, if this is not working for you, Tony, I don't see why not. Give it a try. If it doesn't work out, we're going to paint over it, right? So, but I want this to be a little straighter, so I'm going to just do this. Now, I'm only working with the corner because I've got blue on there, remember? Or you could just use a clean sponge. I'm just going to clean that out because I don't want that blue. But I'm actually going to just take a fresh sponge. I'm going to throw that blue one in there. I'm going to take a fresh sponge, and you can use these over and over again. I'm going to go right to the orange, but I want it to be wet. Okay? The sponge needs to be wet. Go straight to the orange, and I'm going to work from the bottom up all the way across, and then slowly into the yellow, and just come up into the yellow a little bit. I think this is going to be okay. And then I'm going to take a clean sponge and try and blend. All right. So I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to just, between the two, I'm going to take the yellow and I'm going to, oh, it's pulling off some of the orange. So, all right, that's not going to do it. So I'm going to get rid of that and go for the brush. Okay. So get some of the water out of there. Some more of that orange back on there. And now I'm going to try and take some yellow and blend. This is a new part for me, guys, is blending the two colors together without, well, it's all new to me. I'm just going to pull it down into there. That seems okay. So you seem to need a fairly wet brush. I'm going to clean that out again. So you could take a clean brush. That's clean, believe it or not. It has to be wet, okay? I'm going to take some more yellow and I'm going to work into the blue up here. So it's pretty wet. And then I'm just going to work my way up a little bit. And I'm just going to lightly blend. All right. I think I'm going to stop there. That's probably the best blending job I've ever done. So I'm okay with that. So that's better than the last time, although it's not perfectly straight, but that's okay. And so can you see? So we have the blue there. I might need a little more blue. So I'm going to take a smaller brush. Let's try this guy. And wet it. And let's see if I can just bring some blue down into the yellow. Oh, this is like a blending. This blending thing on canvas is my nemesis. But it's okay on there because we're going to be covering that up with a lot of the white anyway for the sky. Okay? So we're not going to worry too much about that. Down here, we're going to be putting a lot of white on to make that orange. That bottom third is we're going to start adding white to that, to the orange here. So we're going to mix some white right beside the orange. See that? Now that orange blended up into the yellow, but this bottom third here is this part here now. We're going to do this, okay? So we're going to lighten that up. We're going to mix some white in with that orange and make it much lighter. See that? And we're going to just, the bottom third, we're going to go fairly. Now, don't worry if it's perfect. I just want a sort of a straight-ish line along here. Okay, this is right along here. You see that? So then we can use this. To fill it in. I think that's pretty good. How's everybody doing? So I'm just cleaning up my brush here. So far, so good. So you can see I covered the orange with a lighter color. There's a blend there, best blend I've ever done. Then there's a blend there, not so great, but you know what? It is what it is, right? That's just me. So like I say, I'm learning along with you guys, right? So thank you, Desiree. All right, so I'm going to just leave that be for now. And you guys let me know when you're ready for me to move on a little bit. We're going to move on to some white. And we're going to use more sponge again, but this time we're going to snip this up. I want to show you what I want to do. So while we're waiting for that to dry a little bit, I want you to take your sponge, just cut it into a small piece like this. Sea sponge is going to be perfect for this, Desiree or Tony. You don't even have to cut it. I just want some weird like angles on it, right? I don't want it to be smooth and flat. So cut. See that? Can you see that? There's nothing smooth about that now. But Tony's sea sponge doesn't need any of that. Tony's sea sponge is definitely going to do that. I have a sea sponge, but it's somewhere else. And not everybody has them. So most people have these kitchen sponges. And you can get them at, of course, the Dollar Tree, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use this for the sky. And that's what I want to do with that. So I'm going to dry this. I think I'm okay with that for now. And then I'm going to move on to the white. So I'm going to grab the hairdryer. Joan is my other sister-in-law, Joan and Karen and Kim. She said, tried to watch it work, but this doesn't work here, so I guess I'll just go home instead. I told Joan that I'd make sure they weren't talking about her while she was at work today. All right, so we've got that dry. Now remember what we did? We took the tape there. Well, we can pull that off now. Oh, okay. It didn't work perfectly, but it kind of looks like a cloud, doesn't it? Let me pull that up. Looks like a cloud is kind of blocking the sun. So I'm okay with that. I think I'm just going to leave that. But you could take, I'm going to show you what you can do. This is how I painted the other one, okay? You can take a small flat brush, okay? Dip it in your white paint. Now, I'll show you how I did it on here. Dip it in your white paint, and you have to hold it straight up and down. So you're going straight onto your palette, okay? And you basically hold it in the center and you kind of move it around. Let me see if I can show you this. Move it around like a clock, okay? And you'll get a circle, but you've got to keep that point in the center, right? So it's not super easy. Let me show you. I'll do it over here. So I kind of like this though. I kind of think it looks like, oh geez, I'm such a messy painter. All right. I kind of think it looks like the sun is got some clouds going on there. So I don't want to actually touch it. So I'm not gonna, but I'll show you on here. So you push it, put it down. So I've got paint on there, right? And I put it down and then I slowly, let's see if I can put this, slowly twist so that only the outside edge is moving, the center is staying in the center. And then you get the circle. It takes a little practice, I'll tell you that, okay? And if this hadn't looked so darn good, I probably would go over it, but I don't really want to. I was like, I like how that turned out. So it's one of those happy accidents, as Bob Ross says. So that's something you can practice, and you just take a piece of cardstock or something and practice again and again and again until you get the circles. It's not the easiest thing to do, okay? So next up, I'm going to take my flat brush and I'm going to use, which size do I want? Got a few here. I'm going to use sort of the 1-inch one, I guess. That's 1.5 inches. That's 1 inch. That's probably a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to wet my brush, get some white paint going here. And then I want to just put some bits of white in here and there. So just kind of stand it on its edge. I'm not doing this way. I'm holding it straight up and down, like you're looking straight down, okay? So I'm kind of doing lines like this. And I'm going to use my finger to blend it a little bit, okay? Just to smooth it out a bit. And that's something that I have always done when I painted. So I'm happy to do that, okay? So you can see where I'm just making the lines. These are going to be the lines, the water basically, right? And just use your finger, or you can use a cloth, but do it quick while it's wet. Okay. See that? So you're just getting these lines, and I could do more here if I wanted. And then we have this kind of squiggle, which is the bit of the sun kind of shimmering on the water. All right. So I'm going to maybe not do as much. I'm just going to take this brush and just let it squiggle, and then I'm going to blend it out a little bit. And you can do that, and you can see I think it's kind of looks like it's shining on the water now. Okay. Maybe it's my imagination, but I'm okay with that. All right. And then I'm going to go up here and kind of do the same thing, but I want to kind of more of a line along here. All right. So I'm going to take some white paint. Just start blending it in. Just so we can get some action going back and forth. I don't want to go all the way up. I want to leave some of that dark. Okay. And we're going to be using the sponge over this too, but this is just to kind of indicate what's going on in the sky, right? You know what I mean? Okay, so here I'm going to just call it good with the brush, and we're going to grab this sponge, dip it in the paint, all right? Just the white. I need to splotch it in there, okay? And then we're going to just kind of lightly make some clouds. See that? So I'm going to go up a little bit here and maybe a bit more in there. And you don't have to do it everywhere, but you just decide where they belong. And I might add some water to this. So see, my clouds look different this time than they did last time. And I can, if I want to, let me see, what can I do? I can take a dry sponge and just kind of blend them a bit. All right. The beautiful thing about clouds is they can be like that. So far, this is where we're going. This is what we've got. I think we could use a little more down here, a little more filled in, I think. So I'm going to go with the brush on that. So then I want a few, like, put a little bit along here, you know, to indicate like clouds in that yellow. But don't put it into the orange. That's more of the sea blending into the sky. And I'm not really crazy about that, so. So just use what you have on hand, like your hands and stuff. Hello, Michelle. So this is just how I like to paint, guys. I like to get into it and, you know, make it my own. And try different tools like sponges. Now, sea sponge would be perfect for this, right? But like I say, most people won't have one on hand right now. So I'm going to take a smaller brush, and I'm going to grab some more white. And I'm just going to put some white in here and make it look like the cloud is what's making this weird looking shape. I'm okay with that. I like using my hands to blend because they're always there. You know exactly where they are. And if you get too much going on, too much blending, then you can always grab some more yellow and fix it up. So I want all the clouds kind of going that way, right? So. Now, do I want any up here? So you can see I use different colors here. Well, no, I actually used the same color blue, didn't I? Yep, Susan, no problem. We're just playing, like we're having some fun and trying some new stuff. Hey, say hi to Susan, everybody. We're just testing. I wanted to try sponges for blending because my blending technique needs some work on canvas. Like, I'm not a artiste by any means. All right, so I'm going to call that good for the sky. If you want to go further than that, cool. But I'm going to dry that, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to put in the rocks and the lighthouse. Okay? So I'm going to give it a quick dry. So I'm done with these ones, but I'm going to put them aside because you never know when you might need them again because something goes wrong. And so I will hang on to them. I'll just throw them off to the side. And next up, I'll just be using black. So like my fancy palette. So I'm just going to put that over there just in case I need to come back to it later. And I think I'm going to actually touch up my sun a little bit with some white. I want to just make a couple of spots a little rounder. I'm really happy with how that sun turned out. That was such a cute little accident. So there we go. So there's the original. Got to take the dogs out. Take your time. Okay, Lori. So there's the original sun, which I painted. I didn't use the tape. I just painted the circle like I showed you, right? And there is the one where I had the circle and it kind of bled underneath. I would use masking tape, not painter's tape, because painter's tape doesn't really hold all that well. But I do like that we managed to save it and make it look like it's actually in the clouds a little bit. So I'm cool with that. So let's see if I can get that closer. There you go. All right. I'm pretty happy with that. Bob Ross would be proud of me. So now we're going to move on to the Lighthouse, which is black. Or sorry, first we're going to do the rocks. Believe it or not, we do the rocks first here, okay? And we're going to take a flat brush. So a small flat brush. Just wet it a little. Take some paint. You don't need a ton. I want you to come about halfway over, and right where the orange meets the lighter orange, that's where we're going to start putting in the rocks. So straight up and down, okay? We're not going to paint like this way, right? We're going to be painting on the edge of the brush, like standing on the edge of the brush. So this tip is what we're using, right? The edge of the brush, like this, okay? So we're going to be using that to put in these. So right about a little more than halfway, it looks like. Yeah, halfway would be about here. So a little more than halfway. I'm going to start by just following along that edge and just kind of build a little bit up and down, but not too much. And it doesn't have to be all perfect. In fact, you don't want it to be. And we're going to take this right across for now and just make our first line. All right. We're going to start with the rocks. See that? So let me move that up closer to you. See that? So I just stood on the edge of the brush, standing on the edge, and I just made my little line. You could draw a straight line, but I don't think it's going to look as good because this is kind of, you want it to look rocky, right? You don't want it to look all straight. So now I'm going to just take the same thing, stand on the edge, and I'm just going to build around in a couple of spots, okay? And then have a look at what I've done, and I pulled a few out here. Okay, the lighthouse is probably going to go right about here, a couple, maybe a few inches out. So don't worry too much about that because you're going to, whatever the lighthouse is, you're going to paint over it. But I'm just going to just, again, with the tip of my edge of my brush, I'm just going to like pull out a couple of rocks and maybe push a little harder to get a few different shapes, right? And then up here, I basically want to just go up like that. And then just use your brush and just kind of bounce it around. You're going to get your rocks. You don't need a ton of paint here. And I'm just pushing and jumping it around and twisting it. Let me show you closer up. So I'm just using my brush and just bouncing it around. Push up and down. See that? And when you do this, you're going to get different layers, hopefully. So then you can just kind of pull. And then I'm going to push hard and get a few rocks to come out into the water. Like that. See that? So you leave a little bit of color down here. It kind of indicates water there, right? That's all we're going to do there. And then I'm going to, I like this one too. I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't that sold on the first one I did here, like this guy. But the more I looked at it, of course, the next day, the better I liked it. So it's weird, eh? That's how it is. Now you can use a little liner brush, or you can just stand on the edge of this one. The more you push on it, the more sort of rocks you get coming out. I don't want to do too much there. It just kind of indicates there's some rocks in the water, right? That's all I'm really going for there. So I'm going to probably fill this in a bit more because I don't want too much orange showing through this part right here, but I'm okay with a little bit up here, but I don't want it to be too like the trees were that we did last time. So there we go. So you can see, it looks a bit different. I built my rocks higher this time. They went up much higher this time. Oh, thanks, Faye. So I'm happy with that. I could add more white into the water. I can see I have a lot more white on this one than I did on this one. I'm just going to leave it. I'm fine with that. All right. So I'm going to wash my brush out, and we're going to dry the rocks before we move on. So once your rocks are ready, we'll start on the lighthouse. I'm a good teacher. That's because I ran a home daycare for many years and did homeschool for many years. And I love to do it. I love to make it clear for people so that they can do it too. Because I believe that you can learn anything you want if you're given the simple instructions and you get the step by step, right? That's my sincere belief, right? Is that you can be taught anything and you can do anything if you get a single step at a time and you just do it. I'm actually trying, and you don't freehand. Donna, cool. Neither do I, really. But we're about to freehand this old lighthouse in, aren't we? But I'm going to show you. Let me grab a piece of paper, guys, so I can show you before we go ahead. So here's the plan. The lighthouse, we're going to draw a line like this, a straight line here into the clouds. Basically, the lighthouse is a very slight triangle. Can you see this? I'm going to, actually, you don't need a pencil. I'm going to use a pen on that so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so imagine this is my pencil. So we're going to draw a line that'll be our center line down to the rocks, right? And it's only going to be to the top of the lighthouse. Then we're going to imagine a very slight triangle. Super slight. Okay, that's basically how the lighthouse is, right? And then we're going to fill it in like that. See that? So go maybe even a less of an angle for the triangle, just the lightest triangle. Okay. And then down here, we're going to bring it out like that. So that's the idea. I'm going to pencil it in. You'll see what I'm doing. Okay, but that's where I'm going with this. All right, and I'm going to do that right here. So I'm going to take some kind of straight edge. Sure, that'll work. And I want my lighthouse to get into the white, okay? It's just barely, like maybe an inch, maybe not even a quarter inch into the water, white. So I'm just going to take my straight edge, give myself a guide, okay? See that? Give myself a guide. And I've brought it up to here, like up into the cloud, let's say. And I'm going to, I can take this and make that triangle because you're going to be painting over this, right? So I'm going to just use this. Actually, it's got to be wider. Look how wide that is, right? This is going to be way too narrow. So I need to come out here. Just kind of, just draw it on a slight angle. Okay, we're just using this center line to help us a little bit. So you can see that. It's not perfect, but you get the idea, right? It's because you're going to paint over it. So nobody's ever going to know that's under there. I promise. And then we're going to draw this part right here. This part right here. Just the bottom to the bottom. We're not doing any of this part. Okay, we're just going to draw right along there. Right to there. And then we're going to draw like a triangle in. See that? And here, we're just going to bring it out a little bit. Can you see that? Does that make sense? All right. It's not quite straight, but hey, thank goodness for black paint. So you just pencil it in first, all right, before we go ahead. And then when we're done painting this part in, we'll pencil in the top part, and then we'll paint that, okay? All good? All right, so once you got it penciled in, we're literally just going to paint it in. We're going to cover it up. So I'm going to take a liner first, a very fine liner, and I'm going to outline all of this, okay? And then I'm going to fill it in. That's how I prefer to paint. So I'm going to take my little liner, which is my smallest brush, and I'm going to treat it like a pen, and I'm just going to follow those pencil lines that we put in there. Don't worry if it gets on the inside because we're going to be painting over it anyway. So we just follow that pencil line down to the rocks. And if it starts to drag a little bit like that, it starts to get light, you get more paint. Okay. And I like to hold my board and move it around. So I am. All right. And then just fill that in. Okay. So I'm going to fill that in with a smaller flat brush because the liner is not really for filling it in. Okay. The liner is just for lining. Right. So that will probably work. It'll fit. Okay. I got all kinds of brushes on the go here today. So take some black paint, and then we're just going to fill this color. We're going to color this in basically. Probably have to do two coats of paint with the black. So there we go. That's the base. Again, it doesn't look identical. You can see, right? My lighthouse is going to look a little different. Let's see if I can. They're going to be slightly different. I could change the angle on that a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. And I want this to be going straight down, basically. All right, and then I'm gonna give it a quick dry and do that second coat. Second coat's always easier because you don't have to get so close to the edge. So I'm gonna pop in there, make that second coat, and then when that's dry, we'll do the top piece. Okay, now there are easier ways to freehand something in. It's called a tracer, and you can like get a little piece of cardstock and trace around it and then paint it in. But since I didn't know if you guys all had access to a printer to do that, we just go with freehand, right? And let me see the rocks. All right, I'm going to actually put a few more dabs of black in the rocks. Not feeling them just yet, so. And then we're going to take our black paint. This part's going to scare you. And we're going to do the shadow on the water right here. So we are literally just going to go squiggle, 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 squiggle on the edge of the brush. Okay, so watch. We're going to start at the base of the lighthouse and come almost to the bottom. And we're just going to quickly and without too much thought, do that. Okay, then go back in, get some more black paint, and then just kind of do that again, but come out a little bit on a couple of spots. And that's it for the shadow. We're going to let that I'm going to give it a quick dry, and we're going to put in just a bit more. Some more black. I'm going to be a little flatter this time and kind of fill it in and leave it at that. Make sure that line is covered. See that? So you have some kind of sticky-outy things like that. There we go. That's the shadow for it in the water. All right. That's good enough for that. So all we have to do now is the little top piece, and we are done, guys. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed. All right. I'm going to dry that so I don't get my hand in the paint. And then we're going to freehand in this bit here. So we're going to do the little lighthouse part, and then we'll put the little, what do they call it? The guardrail. Keep us all from falling off there, right? So let me put this here. I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to draw like a rectangle. I'm going to come in about a quarter of the way and draw a rectangle there. Just a low rectangle, okay? Right there. Can you see that? That's our rectangle up there, a low rectangle, okay? And then up above it, about that size of rectangle again, we're going to draw another line and we're going to do the little triangle. Okay. So the rectangle and the triangle. This is not complicated. Then we're going to do a little circle. Oh, hubby's home. A little circle and a little straight line right there, right on top. Okay. Then we're going to draw in some lines, 4 lines there. Now you have your little bars for the lighthouse. And then just below here, we're going to draw, those are going to be your that's going to be your bars to keep you from falling off the lighthouse. Whatever you call those things. All right, so we did a little low rectangle. Then we imagined another rectangle, and then we drew the triangle on top of it with the little circle and the tiny line. And you come back down here and you just draw in just slightly lower than the rectangle and slightly shorter than this. Okay, I'm actually going to bring this out. Okay, so I'm going to paint this out a bit further with my little liner brush so you can see what I'm talking about. So they have a place to walk up there. All right, so I just painted that out a tiny bit further just to fix that up. All I'm going to do now is paint it in. Okay, so what I just drew, I'm going to paint in the rectangles, the triangle, and the with my liner brush. I'm going to paint in the rectangle. And that triangle. Do the best you can to get a straightish line. Put the little dot and then the tiniest little line at the top. Okay. And then I'm going to draw in those lines that I have. So there. It's your liner. If you have a black Sharpie marker that's very fine point, you could just use that, right? Or just totally use your pencil. And I'm just filling in those lines that we drew. And there we have it, guys. The lighthouse is ready. So this one, I'm going to make that line a little thicker. That's where the lamps are. Okay, there we go. And that's it. We have us a lighthouse. So then all you're doing now is just any little touch-ups that you think, oh, it needs to be darker there. Don't go too crazy on that. You all know that you can drive yourself crazy trying to get things perfect. We're not doing perfect. We're doing really good and fun. Lots of fun. So there we have a lighthouse. See, sisters, not twins. All right. This one's a little more crooked. You can see it now, can't you? This lighthouse, they might have been drinking when they built that. This one's a little better looking because this is my second painting, like I was saying, okay? The first time, there's going to be some things that you would improve on the next time. So actually, I like the rocks better on this one and the lighthouse better on that one, okay? Just, it is what it is, right? But, and I like the ocean and the blending better here, and I definitely like the sun better on this one, right? So this was my very first time ever painting this one, so I knew that there was going to be some things I'd want to improve or try to change when I showed it to you guys, right? But that I did it so that I would have a better idea of sort of where to go, what to do next. And so there we go. Our lighthouse is done. I like the color in the second one too. Yeah, you're right. Hang on. Now I've lost my camera. Come back here. There we go. So there they are. Okay, slightly different. Every time is going to be different. My blending is definitely better on this one now. It's a learning technique for me. I like the lighthouse is going up to heaven. We'll try again next week. Absolutely, Kimberly. But how was your sky and your all those things? Did you learn a lot? So, yeah, my lighthouse here looks like somebody was drunk when they built it. So, but that's okay, right? That's how we learn, right? That is the only way that we're going to learn is by actually putting paint to paper or to canvas and trying it. Because it's one thing to think about it. It's another thing to actually experience it and try it. So we win or we learn, but we never lose for trying. And every single time you do it, every time, the second time, the third time, you'll have a better understanding of what you want to get accomplished and how you want to do it. So, okay. So I'm going to, when I'm finished here, I'm going to grab a quick photo of this and post it in the group, or the page, I mean, and then I want you guys to come and post pictures of yours so I know I'm not alone. And I thank you all for joining me. Did you all have a good time? I hope I didn't move too fast. And I'm going to leave the replay up for 24 hours as per usual. And then it comes down and goes to the group. So Kimberly, don't worry. You'll have this for as long as you want. And oh, I don't mind. This was fun. My blending's getting better too. My blending really stinks. I'm not used to canvas. I'm used to painting on wood, and painting on wood is a whole different experience with the blending, right? With the canvas, it's quite a bit difference. How did you do, Nancy? Was it okay? Did you, and Teresa, am I way ahead again? You did watercolor again. I think my mother-in-law may have used watercolor too. Nancy was using watercolor pencils. So that's okay. I wanted to see I would be curious what this looks like in watercolor. I think it would be kind of nice. The lighthouse is tricky, Teresa, right? The lighthouse it's just, I'm not entirely happy with this one. I'm more happy with this one. This is my second, right? So keep that in mind. And like I say, if you look at this one now, it looks like maybe there was a drunk involved. A little crazy lighthouse. That's okay. That's okay, you guys. Let me show you mine. Have a quick look. Now take a look at how he's not quite straight. And he's not quite, he's leaning a little to the side. Kind of more like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. But that's, like I say, I knew the next time I could improve that. And I did. I can definitely see a big improvement on my lighthouse the next time around. So paint it again, you guys. Paint it again.